Marie Osmond stepped away from social media in April 2025, but not for the reason you'd expect. The 65-year-old star had been facing brutal criticism about her appearance for over a year. Side-by-side photos from the 1970s and 2024 went viral, with people calling her an imposter. She admitted to some treatments but denied major surgery, yet experts pointed to clear changes that couldn't be explained. What happened to Marie's face has become one of Hollywood's biggest mysteries. The truth behind her transformation is more shocking than anyone imagined. Marie Osmond was born on October 13, 1959, in Ogden, Utah. She was the eighth of 9 children and the only daughter in the family. But her birth came at a time when her parents, George and Olive, were already overwhelmed. Their first 2 sons had been born completely deaf. Doctors warned them not to have more children, but George and Olive believed God wanted them to continue. It was a huge risk. They didn't have the money to care for more disabled children. When Marie was born healthy with perfect hearing, it felt like a miracle. She and the 5 younger boys that followed all had normal hearing. Her parents saw it as a sign that they had done the right thing. But the truth was, the financial weight of raising 2 deaf sons never went away. Marie's early childhood was nothing like a normal kid's. Her father had served in the army, and he ran their home almost like a military base. By the time she was just 3 years old, her days were filled with strict rules and music rehearsals. Her brother would play the bugle in the morning to wake everyone up, and they had to respond like soldiers. At meals, they had to say, "Yes, sir," or "Thank you, sir," and if they didn't behave, they were punished. There was no playing outside, no rest, no real childhood. Marie thought every family did this because all she ever knew was practice, scripts, and more practice. While other kids were learning to color, Marie was learning Swedish songs for tour in Europe. Everything in her world was built around performing. The family was also struggling badly with money. Around 1963, when Marie was just 5, things got so bad they had to mortgage their farm and move to Los Angeles with no savings left. Her father had lost about $25,000 on failed businesses and medical bills. That would be worth over $200,000 today. They were broke, living in their car some nights, and Marie had to start performing to help them survive. She didn't sing because she loved it. She sang because if she didn't, they wouldn't eat. That kind of pressure on a little girl is hard to even imagine. She would later say she felt responsible for her whole family before she even knew how to read. Her first big break came in February 1964. She was just 4 years old when she appeared on the Andy Williams Show. Most people thought it was cute, but behind the scenes, it was serious business. Her brothers had a 5-year deal worth around $50,000, and Marie was being tested to see if she could be added to the act. She had to work 18-hour days, memorize scripts she couldn't even read, and take school lessons between rehearsals. Producers even made comments about her weight when she was only 4. That was the beginning of her lifelong struggle with body image. It wasn't a happy childhood dream. It was a job, and Marie was being treated like a product, not a child. By 1967, she had become a regular on the show. Her whole family was now part of the act, and things started to change. They got a record deal with MGM and started touring the world. Marie, Donny, and their younger brother Jimmy traveled in cramped spaces, sometimes sleeping in the trailer's storage compartments. Marie wasn't even 10 years old, and she was already tracking ticket sales with her mom and handling money after shows. She had adult responsibilities before most kids were allowed to cross the street alone. Then in 1971, the Osmonds exploded in popularity. Their song, One Bad Apple, hit #1, and suddenly they were rich. They bought homes in Utah and California. Donny even built a secret room in their house with electronics that made his bed move like something out of a spy movie. But not everything was happy. By 1973, the older brothers wanted to play rock music, and their new spiritual album flopped. Donny became the star with soft songs like Puppy Love, and Marie was mostly left out of the group's success. She was just seen as the girl in a family of boys. That feeling of being pushed aside stayed with her for years. Everything changed for Marie in August 1973. She recorded her very first solo song, Paper Roses, and it was a massive hit. She had just turned 14. The song went to #1 on the country charts, #5 on the Billboard Hot 100, and #2 in the UK. Her album sold over 500,000 copies. It was a dream come true, but it came with a price. Her record label wanted her to act older than she was. They chose songs that sounded like they were for adults, not a teenage girl. Music producers pushed her into styles she didn't choose. Marie loved country music, but they made her record songs that would sell better to older fans. Even at 14, she was already being pulled away from her own voice. Then came 1974, the year everything nearly fell apart. Marie had been performing non-stop, promoting her second album in My Little Corner of the World. Her voice started to fail. Doctors were shocked. She was only 15, but her vocal cords were showing damage normally seen in adults after years of stress. She had to cancel shows, and the family panicked. Marie was making millions for the Osmond brand, and without her voice, it all could have ended. Footage from that time shows her barely able to sing, trying not to cry on stage. It was clear she was exhausted, but the machine around her kept moving. In 1975, she released her third album, Who's Sorry Now? It was different, more pop, less country. Marie wanted to explore new styles, but her brothers didn't like it. The album didn't do as well, and her family blamed her for changing the formula. She was only 16, but she had to fight for the right to choose her own music. Her brothers and managers thought she was hurting the brand, but Marie just wanted to grow. The tension was so strong that it stayed with her for years. She later said she felt like she had to choose between loyalty to her family and being her own artist. That same year, 1975, she went on tour in Japan. It was one of the biggest moments of her career. Fans screamed and fainted like it was Beatlemania. She needed police escorts to get through the crowds, but behind the scenes, Marie was falling apart. She was doing over 200 shows a year. That kind of schedule is brutal even for adults. For a teenager, it was unbearable. She was working constantly, flying between countries, recording albums, doing TV, and still trying to be a girl. Child labor laws in the entertainment world didn't really exist back then, so no one stopped to ask if she was okay. They just kept going. The money was too good. By the time she was 16, Marie Osmond had lived more life than most people twice her age. She had been a performer, a provider, a business asset, and a public figure. But underneath all the fame, there was still a girl who never got to be a child. In January 1976, something happened on television that no one had seen before. Two teenage siblings, Donny Osmond and his sister Marie, were offered their own variety show. Donny was 18. Marie was just 16. The president of ABC had seen their charm during a guest spot and gave them a full show of their own. When it aired on January 23, 1976, nearly 14 million people watched. Week after week, they kept watching. Donny sang rock, Marie sang country, and every episode ended with balloons falling from the ceiling while they sang May Tomorrow Be a Perfect Day. They were the youngest hosts in history and somehow managed to succeed during a time when variety shows were already dying. But behind all that color and music was something much darker. What people didn't see was the pain Marie was hiding behind her smile. While millions saw a cheerful teenager, she was working 18 hours a day with barely enough sleep. She still had to study for school with a tutor and then return home to finish chores. Producers told her she was too fat. At just 103 pounds, they told her to lose 10 more or they'd cancel the show. Marie started starving herself. Her weight dropped to 93 pounds. She couldn't stay awake. She started seeing her body in ways that weren't real. They even dragged her into parking lots and called her a fat pig. The damage this caused stayed with her for decades. Even as she tried to push through it, the pressure kept building. In 1977, she released an album called This Is the Way That I Feel. But it didn't sell well. She wanted more control over her music, but that caused fights with her family and the producers. By the end of 1977, the Osmonds took full control of the show and moved production from Los Angeles to Utah. Marie tried to change the show's style. She wanted it to feel more modern, so she replaced the older music with disco-themed performances. Some fans didn't like the changes. Others missed the classic country and rock parts that made the show feel special. But she was trying to find her voice in a world that kept telling her what to do. In 1978, things got worse. Marie collapsed on set. Her body had given up. She was dehydrated and exhausted. Her team tried to hide it. They kept the media away and made sure no one outside the studio found out. They couldn't risk damaging the show's clean image. But Marie was falling apart. Still, she showed up. She performed. She smiled, because she believed she had to keep going for her family and her fan. In 1978, the show received Emmy nominations, including one for a song called Leading Lady. But the ratings were dropping. In 1979, the network moved the show to Sundays and changed the name to the Osmond Family Show. It didn't work. The show was canceled in May. Around the same time, Donny got married. That caused many of his young female fans to stop watching. The fairy tale was ending, but for Marie, it wasn't just a career change. The years of being judged and starved had done real harm. She developed a habit of binge eating and then fasting for days. Her metabolism never recovered. She couldn't even look in a mirror without feeling horror. In 1978, she tried acting in a Christmas TV movie called The Gift of Love. She played a rich orphan who falls in love with a Swiss immigrant. James Woods played her fiancé. But the movie didn't take off, and critics said she didn't have enough depth for serious acting. She went back to music and television. But the dream of being a dramatic actress started slipping away. Then, in 1982, she tried Broadway. She played Maria in a revival of The Sound of Music. But the reviews were brutal. Critics tore her apart. The show ended early. She had to step away from the spotlight just to heal. That failure haunted her for years. It wasn't until 1994 that she returned to the role on tour and finally got some praise. In 1997, she made her real Broadway debut in The King, and critics called her voice strong, but said she lacked emotion. Still, it was a win. It gave her something she'd been missing for a long time. In 1985, Marie made a huge comeback in country music. Her album There's No Stopping Your Heart was released in July and exploded in popularity. Her duet Meet Me in Montana with Dan Seals hit #1 in the US and Canada. The title song also became a solo #1. It was her first solo chart topper since Paper Roses back in 1973. She moved her family to Nashville and hit the road. She performed over 300 shows a year. She played wherever they would have her, even scraping mud off her shoes after walking through cow fields. But the hard work paid off. It was a new beginning. In 1986, she started something totally different. She began designing and selling porcelain dolls on QVC. This wasn't just a side project. She controlled everything. She worked on each design herself. The dolls were sold in huge numbers. One of them, based on her own mother, sold 3 million units in just 15 minutes. Over time, she designed over 500 dolls. The money came pouring in. It became a full-blown business empire that earned her more than $50 million. People said she was just cashing in on her image, but she proved she had real business smarts. In 1988, she released another album called All in Love. It was recorded in March and came out in July. It had strong vocals and a duet with Paul Davis, but it didn't do well. The singles didn't chart high. Her first divorce became tabloid news, which distracted from the album. Her next release in 1989 didn't do much either. Her country music success had peaked. During the late 1990s, she started performing more in Las Vegas, but it wasn't until 2008 that something magical happened again. She and Donny launched a residency at the Flamingo Hotel. No one expected it to last, but it ran for 11 years. They did 1,230 shows by the time it ended in November 2019. It became the longest-running singing duo act in Vegas history. At one point, they were each earning over $1.5 million a year, plus part of the ticket sales. Even the Flamingo renamed its theater for them. The final night was emotional. They sang their old closing song, and the crowd cried with them. In 2001, she did something brave. She released a book called Behind the Smile about her struggle with postpartum depression. She had just given birth to her 7th child and felt like she was disappearing. She suffered panic attacks, body pain, and dark thoughts. One night, she drove off and left her kids behind, not telling anyone where she was. Her husband convinced her to stay at a hotel and rest. When she talked about it on Opera, thousands of people wrote to her, sharing their own pain. The book helped open a national conversation about depression after childbirth. She made it okay to talk about something no one wanted to admit. In 2007, she went on Dancing with the Stars at age 48. She did surprisingly well, finishing 3rd. But what people remember most is the moment she fainted live on TV. It happened right after a dance. She collapsed and the screen went black. When she woke up, her first words were, "Oh crap, I fainted on live TV." Then she asked for her scores. That moment made her even more human in the eyes of millions. That same year, she began her partnership with Nutrisystem. She lost 50 pounds and became their spokesperson for more than a decade. The deal earned her millions. She used it to talk openly about her weight struggles, which had haunted her since she was 14. She told people that the program helped her body love her back. It wasn't just about losing pounds. It was about healing. In 2019, she joined the talk show The Talk as a co-host. She shared deeply personal stories, including her decision to get breast reduction surgery after years of back pain. She said when she played Maria in The Sound of Music, all people talked about were her breasts. She left the show in 2020 after just 1 season. For the first time since 1982, she and her husband were finally alone after raising 8 children. When Marie Osmond got married for the first time in 1982, she thought it was the beginning of a beautiful forever. She was just 22 years old, and her wedding to basketball player Stephen Craig took place in front of 4,000 people at a Mormon temple. A year later, in April 1983, they had their son, Stephen James Craig. But everything started falling apart faster than anyone expected. By October 1985, their marriage ended. Marie filed for divorce, saying there had been mental cruelty. Behind the scenes, it was even harder. She was trying to balance being a new mother and a famous entertainer at the same time. The pressure was enormous. Friends said Stephen couldn't handle the non-stop attention that came with Marie's fame. Their son would later grow up to be the quiet thread that would bring them back together many years later. In 1986, Marie married again, this time to music producer Brian Blosel. Their life together lasted for 21 years. They had 7 children, 2 biological and 5 adopted. It looked like a big, loving family from the outside, but inside, things got really dark. After her son Matthew was born in July 1999, Marie fell into a terrifying depression. She didn't feel like herself at all. Her body would shake, her thoughts spiraled, and she honestly believed her children would be better off without her. One day, she left the baby with a babysitter, gave her a credit card, and drove off along the coast of California with no idea where she was going. She disappeared for 3 days. Her husband had to track her down over the phone. She ended up in a motel, scared and broken. Doctors gave her medication called Zoloft, which she took for 5 years, but she hated how it made her feel nothing at all. No sadness, but also no happiness. The worst pain in her life came on February 26, 2010. Her adopted son, Michael, just 18 years old, jumped from his apartment building in Los Angeles. He had been going through depression for a long time, especially after Marie and Brian divorced in 2007. He was in his first year at fashion school and had tried rehab, but he felt completely alone. Just days before he died, he told Marie, "I have no friends." Those words haunted her. She understood that feeling too well. At his funeral, his father, Brian, didn't show up. Michael's siblings didn't want him there, and Michael had even changed his last name from Blosel to Brian before he passed. Then something unbelievable happened. On May 4, 2011, exactly 29 years after their first wedding, Marie remarried her first husband, Stephen Craig. It felt like a full-circle moment. What made it even more magical was that Marie found her original wedding dress from 1982, just 5 days before the ceremony, hidden in an old box in her garage. She had already bought a new dress, but it didn't feel right. The date she chose wasn't random either. May 4 was both her mother Olive's birthday and her late son Michael's birthday. Marie said she wanted them both to be there in spirit. She and Stephen had been secretly seeing each other for 2 years before the wedding, keeping it private in case things didn't work out again. They married quietly in a Las Vegas Mormon temple and held a small reception at home. It was her way of healing. The darkest day of her depression didn't happen in 2001. It happened in 1999, right after Matthew was born. She was 40 years old. Her body was so overwhelmed that she couldn't lift her arms or get out of bed. That's when she drove away from her family for 3 days, thinking she would never return. Doctors said it was extreme stress. That painful experience became the reason she wrote her 2001 book, Behind the Smile, where she opened up about her suicidal thoughts and how lost she felt. In 2009, Marie shocked many people in her religious community when she supported her daughter Jessica, who is gay. She went on the radio in Los Angeles and said Jessica was a magnificent woman and deserved equal rights. She even attended Jessica's wedding, which made many conservative Mormon fans angry. People called her out, shamed her, and said she was going against her faith. But Marie didn't back down. She said civil rights should be for everyone. Her words were powerful, but they caused deep divides in her fan base and church. Her body also suffered quietly. After years of dancing on stage, Marie had hurt her knees badly. During her Las Vegas shows, she once fell and chipped off a piece of her kneecap. Years of injuries piled up. In 2015, she had multiple knee surgeries, but she didn't talk much about it. She just kept performing. That's how much pressure there was to look perfect and never show weakness. But her deepest secret came out in her 2001 book. She revealed she had been sexually abused as a teenager in the 1970s. The person who did it was someone involved in her career, not a family member or friend. She said she was threatened and lived in fear. It changed how she saw herself. She said the trauma was so bad, it made her think she was gay because men made her feel sick. For years, she struggled with body image and self-worth. The abuse was a big reason why she had such a hard time later in life. In 2023, she finally spoke about the body shaming she endured when she was only 15. She was 55 and weighed 103 pounds, but a producer pulled her into a parking lot at KTLA and told her she was fat and an embarrassment. It crushed her. From that point on, she started starving herself before tapings, terrified of looking wrong. That humiliation stayed with her for decades and added to her battles with body dysmorphia. Then in March 2024, she appeared on a podcast with Kate Hudson and Oliver Hudson. But instead of talking about her childhood, people focused only on her face. She was 64, but many said she looked like a completely different person. Some accused her of going too far with plastic surgery. Side-by-side pictures from the 1970s and 2024 went viral. The internet was brutal. People called her an imposter and flooded her pages with hurtful comments. It didn't stop there. In 2025, Marie finally responded. She admitted she had Botox and laser treatments, and she had breast reduction surgery for back pain. But she denied getting major surgeries like a facelift. Even so, experts looked at her photos and said there were clear changes in her jawline and neck. In one 2022 video promoting Nutrisystem, her skin looked much tighter than expected. The pressure to always look young had taken over the conversation, and it made Marie feel like people forgot who she really was. By April 2025, she had enough. She announced on Instagram that she was stepping away from social media to focus on her family. She had already been offline for 9 months. She said the criticism over her looks and her past had worn her down. At 65, she just wanted peace. She said she had always tried to listen to her heart, and now her heart was telling her to unplug and be with the people who truly matter. After so much loss, pain, and judgment, Marie was finally choosing to protect herself.